Yo, what is going on YouTube? I am Germ here. So today we're going to be talking once again about Fnatic and their roster situation, potentially heading into the summer split and maybe even potentially heading into the future. Even if they don't decide to shake things up or mix things up a little bit headed into the summer split, maybe they want to still consider that obviously things are going to be changing, whether it is in a couple of weeks or whether it's in a couple of months. This same Fnatic roster is not going to be their long-term Fnatic roster. You know, they had a very shaky, very up and down spring split where I believe they ended up finishing 9-9 in the regular season and then getting 5th overall in the LEC playoffs. I mean, they barely even made the playoffs, and then once they were in there, they really did not have convincing performances. Obviously, they were able to beat SK, I believe, 3-1 before getting 3-0'd by Schalke. So that's obviously not good enough for a team like Fnatic that wants to be going to Worlds, wants to be competing for LEC titles. I mean, ultimately, their goal is probably to try and get back to the position that G2's in and like dethrone them or at least be close to them, not be like rivals with SK for the 6th best team in the LEC. So before we get into that, I just want to mention real quick, if you guys have not already, please take a second, smash that like button. I would appreciate it so much. We always go for around like 100 likes. It's a super good video for me, so check it out. If we're under 100 likes, hey, help us out, run it up. If we're over 100, you know, we can chill out a little bit. But also subscribe to stay up to date on all my latest content so you guys don't miss out on anything we got going on in the future. LEC finals this weekend, LCS finals this weekend, MSI coming up, the off season between spring and summer. Lots of awesome content, lots of awesome videos coming your guys' way in the near future. With that being said, here we go. So this was 4 days ago. I put out this poll saying if Fnatic makes a roster move, who should they replace? Maybe I should have put a none of the above on here. I put Bwipo, Selfmade, Nisky, and Hylissang. I left Upset off the list because he obviously was an MVP candidate. I don't think there's going to be too many people calling for an Upset replacement. And honestly, who would you even replace Upset with? I mean, besides Reckless, who was a better AD carry this split? Who would you rather have? So I decided to leave him off. But obviously, 5,600 votes. You know, you guys always pop off in these polls. I really do appreciate it. It's awesome to get so much engagement on some of these polls and things and really see what the community thinks. And obviously, people were very divided on this. Bwipo ended up winning, but I wanted to talk a little bit about Nisky today because I think a lot of people were surprised that he got the second most votes. And honestly, 5,000 votes, 1% off. That's not a ton of votes difference between what Bwipo and Nisky could have potentially gotten. So you guys are very divided on this. And honestly, I don't see such an immediate replacement available for Bwipo. I know a lot of people have talked about how Bwipo and Hylissang are kind of a package deal. It'd be kind of difficult to replace one without the other. Where would Bwipo go? Who would Bwipo be replaced by? I know Fnatic Rising, they have Pride as their top laner right now, and I don't really think many people are saying that Pride is going to come into the LEC and be better than Bwipo. As to where Nisky, there are maybe some more immediate options available. Obviously, Fnatic Rising has Febiven. We can go over what he's been doing in Fnatic Rising recently, whether he would actually be good enough. But that's why Fnatic ultimately got him originally, was just in case Nisky didn't play that well, or just in case Fnatic didn't play that well, to have a veteran mid laner there to potentially be ready to sub in, a veteran mid laner potentially there to run maybe a 6-man roster with. You know, Fnatic does have some different options, and I'm not saying that necessarily Nisky should be benched or that he's going to be benched or that Febiven should even get a chance, but I'm just saying I think it is a realistic option. And I know some of the comments are talking about they don't understand why people hate Nisky. He's supposed to, you know, be a supportive style mid laner, and there's not really anybody to support on this team, and I totally understand that. But if there's going to continue to not be anyone to support on this team, then maybe we need a different style mid laner there for Fnatic. Maybe that would make way more sense. But also, some people saying that Nisky was the 3rd best mid laner in the LEC, like, come on, like, Nisky has a ton of fans. I get it. He's played on Fnatic. He's played on Cloud9. He's done pretty well. He had, you know, spent time in Europe before and been pretty good. But Nisky was absolutely not the 3rd best mid laner in the LEC this year. You're telling me Fnatic right now is taking Nisky over Caps, over Larson, over Humanoid? Like, there's no way. If you're taking Nisky over Humanoid right now, I don't know what to tell you. You're not watching the games. Nisky had a terrible KDA, not even a terrible KDA, but like low KDA, low kill participation, low damage per minute. I mean, yes, the low damage per minute is always going to be a thing that's there for Nisky, but he's usually a very high kill participation, high KDA guy that isn't going to do a ton of damage per minute, but he's going to get a ton of assists. He's going to be making plays all over the map, and that's not even what Nisky did this split. Nisky yes, he wasn't dying, but he wasn't doing damage. He was not a huge carry threat in the mid lane, but he also wasn't a huge supportive mid laner as well. And yes, some of that you could blame on the fact that Fnatic didn't have a lot of options to carry around. You know, Bwipo's running it down half the time. Nisky's Hylissang's running it down half the time. Self-made definitely wasn't his normal carry self this split. So yes, a supportive style mid laner was gonna struggle. It was not necessarily the best environment probably for a mid laner like Nisky, but is that stuff going to be changing into the summer? I mean, if Fnatic continues to play like this, why would you continue to go with a supportive style mid laner who really has shown in his career he lacks the flexibility and lacks the adaptability of being able to change and fit the different metas and the different styles, when you have a guy like Febiven there who can potentially play a little bit of that style. Now, when we take a look at Fnatic Rising, some of their last couple of matches, this is up against G2 Arctic, where Febiven in their last game, he went 2-5-3 on the Lucian. The game before that, 5-5 on the Twisted Fate. This was another loss for them. He went 3-6 on the Orianna, 5-1-14 on the Twisted Fate, and 4-4-5 on LeBlanc. So we know that, you know, obviously Febiven plays a little bit more of the different styles of champions. He fits probably more overall different metas than Nisky. I know some people have been talking about how Febiven's getting gapped in European in the European regional leagues, which I don't necessarily agree with. I haven't watched a ton of Fnatic Rising, but I've seen some of their games, especially the more recent ones as they were trying to qualify for European Masters. And I don't think Febiven looked amazing, but overall, when you look at his split as a whole, 31 games, he had a 5.1 KDA, average game of 3.6, 2.2, and 7.8. That's definitely not bad at all. And yes, Fnatic Rising has not gotten the tournament results that they would have wanted. Obviously, they finished first in the, I think this is the Northern European League, where they finished first in the regular season, or first in Group B. They ended up finishing second in the playoffs. And then, yes, they didn't qualify for European Masters, but this is a very different team than we have seen previously from Fnatic Rising. It's overall probably a less talented team. Obviously, a lot of their players got picked up and stuff. So yes, I don't think Febiven has like really shown us anything in the European regional leagues that says he needs to get an opportunity, that he needs to start over Nisky, or that if he does start over Nisky, he's going to be better or help out Fnatic in any way. But I think that Nisky has shown that his current playstyle probably doesn't fit in with this iteration of Fnatic currently, and he's not coming off that great of a split either. Some people had him rated as the third best mid laner. Some people said fourth. I have him closer to fifth or sixth, especially headed into next season. I was not really impressed with what I saw from him. You know, he was solid. He wasn't, you know, one of the ones inting. He wasn't one of the ones running it down, but he also wasn't really doing too many positive or productive things that often. He had some good plays. He had some solo kills. He was overall pretty solid, but honestly, this was one of the weaker splits for LEC mid laners. They had a lot of new faces coming in, a lot of guys that really disappointed. A lot of teams went young in the mid lane this split. This was not your typical LEC mid lane gauntlet of a split, and Nisky still didn't dominate. He was one of the veterans. He was one of the guys who's played on some big teams, won some big games, gone to some big tournaments and events, and he absolutely did not dominate. He looked, you know, comparable to some of these other younger guys at certain points. So I was certainly not impressed. And again, I'm not blaming Fnatic's split or Fnatic's failures or anything on Nisky. Obviously, yeah, I think Bwipo was absolutely not good enough, and he probably deserves to be replaced. And Hylissang also took a giant step back this year, but I do not believe in the end that the subbing of Nisky for Nemesis was in the end that much of a success. Do I think Fnatic would have been worse this split with Nemesis in the mid lane? No, I think they would have been pretty comparable, but potentially Nemesis maybe would have been a little bit better, or maybe even a little bit better of a fit for this specific Fnatic team, for this specific Fnatic roster. Now, Nisky coming from Cloud9 last year, where Cloud9 had carry top laner in Licorice, carry jungler in Blabber, a huge AD carry in Sven, a huge playmaking support in Vulcan. Does Nisky fit in with a team like that? Yeah, sure, he was awesome on that Cloud9 team at times. He had some times where he still didn't even look that good on Cloud9. Think back to, they didn't even make it to Worlds last year, and they were considered the best team, the best LCS team of all time, or the most dominant LCS team of all time. They didn't even make Worlds, so some things went wrong. Some players weren't playing so well. But yeah, I know Nisky has a lot of fans. I know people are always going to come to his defense. I mean, when he was in the LCS, there was people saying he was better than Bjergsen and better than Jensen, and you know, there's always been a lot of crazy Nisky takes. And I don't really necessarily understand it. I don't really necessarily get it. I think my outlook on him is a lot more like realistic, a lot more unbiased. Because I'm mainly an LCS fan. I'm mainly an LCS guy. What do I care what Fnatic's mid laner is doing? But in the end, this was a fifth or fifth or sixth place team in the regular season. It was a fifth place team in the playoffs. And I don't know why that means their mid laner is like a god all of a sudden. Like he wasn't doing enough to win games. He wasn't doing what his team needed. He was not a big carry threat in the mid lane. He was a guy who consistently did low damage and didn't have high kill participation. He just did a whole lot of nothing in my eyes. And yeah, maybe on certain teams, certain rosters, that's good enough, but I don't think it is. And this is not to say that everyone, is saying that Nisky was great or anything. Obviously, I mean, look at this poll. Nisky gets the second most votes. There is a ton of people out there that think Nisky wasn't good enough and Nisky needs to be replaced. But some of the Nisky fans are just very, very vocal out there. I think it's really just like kind of the vocal minority that really comes to Nisky's defense. But definitely, there's people that come to Bwipo and Hylissang's defense too. You know, these are popular players. They have fans and stuff, and they don't want to see their favorite players getting bashed and stuff. But I think if you just take a look at the split as a whole, take a look at some of the games, I think it does make sense. Now, ultimately, what is the answer for Fnatic? Could they run Nisky back the entire spring split, never sub in Febiven a single game and be fine? Yeah, sure. I don't think that would be a terrible decision at all. Could Febiven get some games here and there and see what happens? Could he at least scrim with the main team? I don't think that would be that bad of a decision. But going forward, I think headed into 2022, Fnatic's definitely going to make a bunch of changes. I don't think there's really any way that Bwipo and Hylissang come back. I kind of expect Nisky to come back, I guess, but it's going to depend who they get in the top lane, who they get as a support, and what the options are out there for mid laners. But again, this Fnatic team is going to be making changes. They are going to be making moves, and some of these players are going to be gone. I believe Bwipo, Selfmade, and Hylissang are all on the last year of their contract, so some changes are going to be made. It's going to be interesting to see who resigns, who comes back, who wants to come back, who Fnatic wants to bring back, and I don't really know. But again, these results are not good enough for an organization like Fnatic. They shouldn't be good enough for the Fnatic fans. They're definitely not good enough for Fnatic management. They're definitely not good enough for the Fnatic players. And at some point, players are going to have to be held responsible. Yes, Bwipo had a down split. Yes, Hylissang had a down split. Yes, Selfmade had a down split. But Nisky had a down split as well, and I think people need to kind of start realizing that and looking at that and understanding that Febiven was brought in for a reason. And so many times we've seen players, maybe even if you think, I don't necessarily think Febiven has been struggling in European regional leagues. I don't think he's been amazing. I don't think he's been so good that he automatically deserves an opportunity, but I think he's been solid. I think he's been fine on especially not even the greatest European regional league team. But look at time and time again in European regional leagues, in LCS Academy, there's been players who have absolutely popped off. I'm thinking like Diamond last year. Looked like he might be the best support in the LCS Academy scene. He came up to the LCS this year and he sucked. He was absolutely terrible. He was the worst support in the league, and he got sent right back down. There's been players who have struggled a little bit more in the LCS Academy. Not struggled, but they haven't been, like Academy superstars. They haven't been European Regional League superstars. And they've come up to the LCS and they've come up to the LEC and they've been pretty good, because so much of it is, it's a team game. So much of it is, how good is your team? That's going to make you do better, perform better, play better if you're getting to play with better players. How do you fit in with that team? How comfortable are you in the situation, in the environment? How good is your coaching staff? There's so much that goes into it. Just because Febiven maybe hasn't looked amazing or like an absolute monster in European regional leagues doesn't mean that he wouldn't look okay with Fnatic. Doesn't mean he wouldn't look pretty good with Fnatic. And again, Nisky's not looking like a monster either. This guy is absolutely replaceable. He shouldn't be untouchable. He shouldn't be unbenchable. So again, I'm not sure what Fnatic is going to do. I would be surprised if they do nothing headed into the summer split. But again, it's such a short timeline. It's hard to find players. Everyone's signed. It's hard to make moves because, yeah, who are you going to bench? Who are you going to call up? What's going to happen? It's always tough. But I think if Fnatic just makes no changes and they roll the same roster back in the summer split, I think they're still going to have a lot of the same issues. I really do believe that Reckless and even maybe a little bit Nemesis were huge parts in kind of reining in the craziness of Bwipo and Hylissang on this team, and losing both of those voices, losing both of those play styles, and replacing them with, Nisky and Upset, who they've both been solid. Upset has been very great. Nisky has been okay. But they're maybe missing the voice and the bringing in of the just kind of craziness and inting of Bwipo and Hylissang. And for one reason or another, it's not really working out. And yes, we've seen Fnatic struggle in the regular season before, but getting 5th place in the playoffs and barely making the playoffs, I don't know. I don't know if this is the roster. And again, Fnatic, things are going to change in the future anyway. All these expiring contracts, things are going to change. So why not get some of those changes going now? Why not see what you've got in Fnatic Rising now to make your decisions going forward in the future a little bit easier, especially if your team's going to be struggling and going to be middle of the pack in the LEC anyway. But that's pretty much everything for this video today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. I would really appreciate it if you dropped a like. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm. That'd be awesome. Leave a comment down below. What do you think Fnatic should do in the mid lane? Do you think it's Nisky? Do you think it's Febiven? Is there somebody else they should go after? Should they call Nemesis back up? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. Subscribe to stay up to date on all my latest content. Hopefully catch you guys in the next one. But until then, peace!